Hello, YouTube peoples. It is I, Warren. If you're still watching after realizing this is about model trains, I assume you know what Hornby is. I assume you know in general what the Dublo range is, but it's the die-cast models with the plastic tenders that Hornby does, kind of reliving the glory days of the original Hornby Dublo die-cast models from donkey's years past. But I'm going to use these models here, as well as that and that, to demonstrate the experience of modern Hornby, right? These are modern. This is a model, I think, from 2019, maybe. These were released 2023. That was released late last year, early this year. Late last year, I believe. And these are the Dublo Flying Scotsman. I'm going to talk about Hornby and how these sum up Hornby. So I got to tell you about the problems with the Hornby Dublo Flying Scotsman range. If you have one of these and you think that these are brilliant, accurate models and you want to continue to live in your ignorance, click off now. I'm begging you. Ignorance really is bliss. I knew about these problems before I bought these, but 1923 and 1924 Scotsmans in the range have the wrong cab. They have this cab. They have the cab that is shorter than the safety valves, where the cab roof is below the safety valves. In 1924 and 1923, Flying Scotsman was in her original Great Northern loading gauge condition, and Hornby got this right with the buffer beam, which was rectangular without this cutout, but the cab didn't model the cab appropriately. This model, 1946, isn't 1946 because according to the RCTS, Flying Scotsman was only made a A3 in January of 47. And then the preservation era Scotsmans had the wrong cab. I believe this is an A4 cab. No, tender. I believe this is an A4 tender, and there should be a little swoosh cutout back here. That shouldn't be a straight line because Alan Pigler got a corridor A3 tender. Of course, maybe I got that around and it was a corridor A4, but whatever. Point being that this is the wrong tender. So, as far as I can tell, setting the box aside and looking at the model with the paint job, someone who knew about Flying Scotsman could say, yes, this is Flying Scotsman post-January 1947, before nationalization. Because of the tender is accurate, the, loco is accurate. Now, there could be some major problems, but let's just set that aside. But all the other models are wrong. And if we include the box, 6 out of 6 models are wrong. Because 0 out of 6 ain't bad. And you know what? I'm gonna get to the problems with modern Hornby. And what these models I've got here feel like. This model, from a design standpoint, feels like, or looks like it was made and designed by, it looks like it was designed by someone who really loves steam engines, who loves Flying Scotsman, who wanted to do the best job he could. From an assembly standpoint, it looks like it was assembled by a company that thought that this was acceptable for 360 pounds. It looks like it was sold by a company that's publicly traded. You know what I mean. Okay, this is, if you're like some diehard capitalist, just bear with me for a moment here. I'm not against companies selling things. I'm really not. Just bear me out here. This model looks like it was designed by someone who really cared, but then was told, we can't build a new tender, use this tender instead. Because that would cost a little bit too much money. And if I'm right in my assumption that this, because this feels, I believe it feels plastic, it's kind of hard to tell, that this is a separate glued on part, and these are glued on parts. That would mean that the body itself for these was all one part. It would mean that the 1923 and the 1924 Scotsmans, Hornby decided that it was not going to do a separate casting for the higher roof. That is incredible. Incredible that it thought it could get away with it. You know, people like companies like Rapido and Akira Scale. And, you know, those companies aren't perfect, and there's some people who have particular issue after bad personal experiences. But, you know, Rapido summed up from the models that I actually own of theirs, or its, because it's a singular company, are like this GWR Toad here, okay? High spec, high price, don't get me wrong, high price, but, you know, incredibly high spec, look at that, and high quality. Okay, that's Rapido. Okay, when people think Rapido, they think, you know, high price, high spec, high quality. When people think about, you know, Akira Scale, they think, you know, for the locomotives at least, and I don't have any Akira Scale locomotives. I do have one of the buck jumpers on pre-order, and I have the X-Hattons, a couple of the X-Hattons P classes on order. Of course, I had those from Hatton's days. But people think, you know, very reasonable prices, very, very detailed models. And, you know, those, I know about the 37s, but just bear with me here. Because that was an issue with one release. Hornby, you have high price, hypothetically, very high spec. Okay, these are part of that last generation of 8-pin DCC locomotives, you know, whatever. But if I move both of these at once, of course, now I realize that the faster locomotive is behind, so that's kind of a problem, isn't it? But you can see just barely lighting up that cab. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And the new Hornby Black 5s that are releasing have, you know, that LMS one that just came into stock has, you know, working lamps, and later there's going to be a version that's released with steam. I believe that new water steam effect, and once it has DCC sound, it's going to have the synchronized sound. You know, really basically all the features you could want in a modern Dublo locomotive, except for a flywheel. But I guess you have to make the cut somewhere. Hornby models, new models, are very high spec. The regular versions of these, the non-Dublo ones, have a plastic boiler, which on a locomotive of this size is unusual, but do have the die-cast running plate. Brilliant. It's the quality. And this is not new. If you have watched this video and you've made it to this point, you probably heard this rant 100 times before. You probably agree with it. You probably made the point to yourself, to your friends who actually care or who stomach you enough to listen. But to Hornby, from the bottom of my heart, you know what's going on, don't you? You know this. Someone looked at this, and people are going to say, it's a one-off. It's a one-off. Okay, yes. 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 Okay, I know that there are Dublo Flying Scotsmen that are not like this. I've seen Flying Scott's video of his 1946 Dublo Scotsman. It doesn't have all this as glue on it as far as I could see. Absolutely stunning model. This model here, she's not perfect with her lining on which side has the hiccup. Well, there's a little bit of hiccups in the lining on all of them, but I believe one band somewhere, you can kind of see there's a problem there, but I believe there's one band that kind of has, that's not as bad a problem as I thought, but there's lining issues, you know. But Hornby has made brilliant models. I know that Hornby is capable of making models that look brilliant, that meet the expectations. You know why? Because this is one. This is a Hornby British Rail Standard Class 2. The only, you know, it does not have the dodgy motor that some of these have. The only problem is it kind of derails on these old Atlas points, but those are at high speed, but those are 20 years older than me, and I don't use and I don't run her at the high speeds. So, she is a gorgeous runner, the smoothest runner I have, absolutely breathtaking. And that was even after all that weathering was caked on her and the wheels aren't perfectly clean. But Hornby, more often I see Hornby models like this or like this. Not just ones that I own, but ones that other people own. And look, even if it's not the majority, and I'm not saying it is the majority, even if it's not the majority, there are however many there are too many. Okay? I know that Hornby is capable of making great models. I have one. I have a couple. But these aren't the only two modern Hornby Flying Scotsmans I have. I have the Locomotion Models commissioned 1924 British Empire Exhibition Scotsman, which has the appropriate cab, because I guess there it's okay to have multiple variations in the body tooling, or maybe Hornby decided, well, we're going to do a 1924 or a 1923 big grouping centenary A1 in that condition, and so they updated the cab for their Great Northern and their 2017 attempt at a British Empire Exhibition Scotsman, which looked absolutely horrible because the wheels were wrong, because the paint job was wrong. But yeah, Hornby, that model, sorry for rambling, but my point was that model has quality issues with the lining. I had to send the first one back that I got because there was a lot of visible glue on it, and this band here had a little bit of wear on one side. And you know what? They're going to be the anti-Hornby people who are not going to believe me. I didn't want to pull out another model, but I've been trying to clean up and reorganize the floor. You can see how well that's going. Let me look at my cabinet of shame of all the models that I have bought. This is the that's the 2017 one. That just has the inaccurate paint. I'm sorry. This is the new one. I don't know why I went straight for the old one, but whatever. Maybe it's just because I'm a Hornby hater. Ooh. Okay. Look at this. Why don't you? Okay, that's a hiccup in the lining, and you know what? You may say that's not major, whatever. On a model that more than any of these is probably one that would be in a display cabinet because it's when the literal locomotive was on the display. Yes, that's a big issue. Okay, and you can kind of see a little bit of glue there. You kind of see that. So, yes, if you may call me anti-Hornby all you like, but when this is the sort of thing that I accept because the first one was significantly worse than this, I think I have a right to say that Hornby has a quality control problem. Okay? And yes, you may call me a spoiled brat because I have all of these. But you know what? I don't really care. Okay? I am in a very weird position in my life where I am able to afford these. And I am trying, and one day I'm going to not be able to do it, either because I finally grow common sense or because circumstances force me to. But this is not acceptable. For me personally, you know what? They're toys. At the end of the day, they're toys. They're models, but they're also toys because, they have the compromised overscale running valve gear to make them work. There should be detail there, and then the boiler separated. These are toys to make them, in a sense, the compromise to make them function, and they're Dublo, so the wheels are narrower than they should be. But at the end of the day, it's okay for me because I have a limit where I can say I'm going to accept this. I knew about this going in. I don't know if I'm going to accept this, but I have a limit. But for Hornby, you have a problem. Because even if you think it's okay to sell customers this or that, even if you think that's okay, or this nightmare, look at the finish on this. A Railroad A1 has a better finish than this, and certainly a better boiler joint too. I mean, that's not even. That's just gross. Even if you think that's okay, your customers don't. Okay, I had to send one of these back. Okay. Okay. The first one, like I said, went back. So presumably, what happened is that Locomotion Models gets it back. You know, they make sure that the lady, who was very kind, presumably checked to make sure I didn't rip off the museum by sending back an empty box, or something that had been weighted down, and put the new one in the box, and then the original got sent back to Hornby. And Hornby had to refund Locomotion the trade price. Well, this is bad for Locomotion because Locomotion Models makes the money back, because on paper, but you have to consider the cost of paying the customer service lady to deal with this issue when she could have been dealing with other things. I think she's also she picks out the models and ships them. At least that's the impression I got from her conversation. So you have to pay for those lost hours that could have been better spent elsewhere. That does include the shipping, because the only shipping I had to really pay for this was the original shipping for the first model. And so the museum gift shop had to pay for the shipping back to the UK, and then the shipping of the replacement model to me. So that's, I don't know how much that costs. I get charged £30 for Locomotion models, because they use UPS Express shipping, which admittedly is very fast. But they're out money. Even if they get the trade price back, they're out money. And Hornby, you're out money because you have to pay to inspect the model, see if you can rip parts off of it, and put them into the spares bin, or do whatever you do. I mean, I'm sure you do something to try to recoup the cost, but that's a model you didn't sell. Ultimately, you sold it, but then you had to give the money back. So that eats into your revenues. And you're in financial trouble. Okay, I don't know if your TT stunt, is a way to deal with that. And you know what? Your TT stuff ain't immune from those problems either. But I think Hornby, you recognize that if you want to survive, you're going to have to build very high spec models. That Black 5 that you're going to release with the DCC sound and smoke, and then it's going to have the lighting and the flickering firebox. That's everything you could want in a 00 gauge model. Realistically speaking, of course, for ready to run. Maybe one day you'll be able to do that TRS trains thing where the valve gear the cylinders have steam shooting out, or the ejectors have steam shooting out of them, and maybe crazy in the future we can have steam popping out the safety valves and the whistle. Probably not at this scale, but hey, live steam was made possible in 00, so what do you never know. But if you want to get to that point, you need to make models that are quality. And this guy here is quality. And you need Rapido models, high spec, high price, high quality. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with paying money. If this model was perfect, I don't think necessarily would have mind paying £360. That's a little expensive, but I wouldn't mind paying $200. This model with the TMC weathered was $250. I didn't mind paying it because it's beautiful. The weathering job on it and the quality of the model and everything. This model £119. £119 that I paid from Hatton's. I'm not saying you're the reason Hatton's went under, right? A lot of things contribute to Hatton's going under, probably. But unless the trade price was like 100, unless that was the trade price on these, Hatton's was £119 or less. I think Hatton's lost money on these, right? And this was the more expensive one they sold. They also had Chamelger for 109, but I wanted Edward Thompson, because I'm an Edward Thompson fanboy. So yeah, Hornby, you can do better. Okay, make models that are as accurate, allegedly, as this, with as much care put into the box as this. That have the quality of this guy or gal. You know, make if every model here was made to this standard with a good motor, then, you know, I wouldn't be making this video. But you know what? That's ultimately on you, right? If Hornby, if you want to survive Hornby for the, you know, into the 2030s, or the 2040s, 50s, whatever, that's on you. Because I don't know if I'm going to send this back. I really don't. But, you know, this may show up at your door, and you may have to give Gauge Master back the trade price for this guy. Unless that's not exact, unless my misunderstanding isn't how that works. But even then, even assuming you don't lose anything on this, why should I bother? I really wanted to try your new Black Fives. Because they're, you know, looking at Proper Chef's video of his, it's so cool. The lights, you know, the quality on his, it's so cool. But then I look at the one that Sam Strain's got, and I'm like, is if I bought one, would mine be closer to this end, the Proper Chuffed Black 5 end of the spectrum, the Flying Scott, his version of this model, end of the spectrum, or would it be closer to the Sam's Trains end of the spectrum, or my 1946 Scotsman spectrum? I've gone through the hassle of returning your model before. I've gone through the hassle of going down to UPS. It was easy. UPS came to me, but, you know, I've had to send models back via the post office. I actually did have to get a replacement on this guy. You know, do I want to go through that again? I don't know. For a good enough model, I guess, but why take the risk? I mean, I honestly, I think I am more of the opinion that it is better to wait for a model to have passed through the collection of an owner and then go to a good secondhand dealer like Clark Railworks, and go and buy it secondhand from a store like that than it is to buy new. Because at least when you buy a model from Clark Railworks, you get pictures of the individual locomotive that you're going to get, right? This is why I wish that I had a local American dealer that could do it. My hobby shop, there's no way that my hobby shop would ever do American, you know, British models. Technically, my local hobby shop was a Hornby authorized dealer, although I think that was more for Lima than it was for anything else. But yeah, if I could go to my local hobby shop and I could open the box and say, ooh, yes, I like this one, ooh, you know, then that would be one thing. But I can't. And we live in a world where most people are probably buying their locos online, and then they get this. If you want to survive, you got to do better, Hornby. Because now I kind of don't want to buy another one of your models again, unless it's heavily discounted,
and then the retailers are kind of going to be mad at you and going to have to kind of reconsider whether or not they should continue to stock your stuff. Because it's not a loss to stock your stuff if it's not going to be sold anyways. So yeah, sorry, Hornby. We'll see how you do in the future, but yeah, I wish you stick around because I don't want you to go bust. I don't like the idea of people losing jobs, but it is what it is. If you go out of business and Rapido or Acura Scale snaps up your tooling for these and starts making them right, then cool, great. As an aside, now that the main video is over, I got a couple comments. Okay, you also made a version of these with gold plating, and this is something you've done for a while. Stop that. Okay, if you want to make a version of the model that's just for display, ditch the gold, make this true scale, fill in the details that you have to omit from a working model. So make the valve gear, not, have to make the valve gear easy to disassemble because it's not going to move. You can rip out the motor, make a version of the tooling that incorporates all the details, and make a static model. And then, maybe as opposed to making them in China, have them hand painted in Korea, like those, O-gauge models. O-gauge models made by, very, very high-end companies like Golden Age Models Limited or whatever. And sell nice display models. I would buy that. You make a 1924 British Empire Exhibition version of Scotsman to that spec that is absolutely faultless in its thing, faultless, but has all the details, in between the valve gear, the inside motion. You make it the livery application perfect. You make everything, handcrafted, hand assembled. I would buy it. I would pay £400 for it. I would pay £500 for it. I really don't care. As long as it's accurate, it is assembled properly, and as long as it's like a true scale model, I would buy it. I would buy that 1924 Empire Exhibition Scotsman, despite owning this. despite owning that, whatever, I would do it. So if you want to make versions of the model, because I don't think that those sold very well, of course, you probably know better than I do. If you want to make static versions of your this to mark important anniversaries, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do for me, anyways. Maybe I'm a minority, but for me, I'd buy that. But I would tell you to send me a picture of the specific version, the specific model that you're going to sell me. You pull it out of its box, you take a picture of it on this little display stand, and you send it to me. But if you could do that, if you could make the quality, I would buy that for a static model. The gold ones, I don't know who likes those. If you like those, let me know. More power to you. I don't, but yeah, that's me.